America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of the Job Creators Network.
Please subscribe to the show at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. And Alfredo, today we're going to be joined by Susan Kochevar. She's a small business owner, activist, and former chairman of the Colorado Republican Business Coalition. Her family bought the 88 Drive-In Theater located in Commerce City, Colorado in 1976. She grew up serving customers at night and picking up trash and cleaning the bathrooms in the morning, and she continues to own the 88 Drive-In until this day. So I'm very excited to have Susan on for a couple reasons. Of course, we've known her for several years now. She was with us through the whole Tax Cuts and Jobs Act fight, and she went on, did multiple events with us. She went to the steps of the IRS building and did the rally, Tax Cuts Now. I mean, she's just, amazing business person. But she also does some things that really go back to the beginning for us with Job Creators Network, because she's employing young people at her drive-in theater. And she takes the time to do what, we were originally founded to do. And that was to help employers educate their employees about how policies impact their paychecks and their livelihoods and their families overall. And so she's got these, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are working for her. And she literally walks them through the payroll taxes and who's getting those, where are those going, and that she's matching those taxes and helping them understand some of the sort of basic life skills that you need, to move on. And she's sharing that information so people understand. And I really admire her for her taking the time with people like that, with her employees.
I really do look forward to it. I'm, talking to Susan. I'm not sure if you know this, Elaine, but there are only about 300 drive-in movie theaters left in this country, and so I'm excited that she's one of them and one of our members, and we get to hear the stories about that because I think back before really movie theaters were big. I mean, there were thousands of these drive-ins, and so. I know that she had to survive during COVID, and so that is going to be interesting to hear that. But you're right. I think the story of what she does with educating the youth that she employs is really, really something interesting. You mentioned what we originally started off at Job Creators Network when we were founded was this employer-to-employee education program. If you remember the E2E program, and I know we really created basically almost curriculum, I guess you could call it, but explainer videos and stuff like that to teach their employees. But, what I want to hear from Susan is really how she specifically gears it towards these 15, 16, 17-year-olds that she actually employs, because I think this is a really important segment because, obviously as you see those numbers about socialism versus capitalism, 60+% of the kids say, socialism is a good thing. There's just not really, I think, a clear understanding from their perspective of what socialism actually really is. And of course, capitalism is a bad word for these kids. And so being able to educate them, I think, and better understand, what, quite frankly, life is about and what, business is about, what a paycheck is about, earning a dollar. I think it's going to be really important. And I think what she does there is really very powerful. And I want to be able to think about, how we might be able to take what she does and maybe expand upon that. Because again, it's kind of like, I know one of your favorite shows, Friends. There was an episode there where they were looking, I think I don't know which one, but she was looking at one of her paychecks, and she looked at the line item of FICA and was like, who is that? And why are they taking such a big part of my paycheck? I think a lot of people think that. And you know what? I wonder how many of our youth think that it's actually the employers that are taking away all these monies instead of the federal government. I bet you a lot of people don't understand it. And so, again, I think it's really great to talk to her about that. And we should really think through your foundation, really, about how to kind of bring back that E2E program, the employer to employee education program, but maybe gearing it specifically to this teenage crowd, which unfortunately gets all their misinformation, I should say, from TikTok. So I think that'll be really great to hear what she has to say.
Well, for anyone, for any of our listeners out there, they can look at our E2E program at informationstation.org. And what we did was we created these 1 to 2 minute videos that center around policies, whether it be taxes or different government red tape or regulation. Some people call it regulations. We like to call it government red tape. Education, helping people understand why college has gotten so expensive and how the student loan program works. We also did a series on just how the government works, how Congress works, how a bill gets passed. And some of that stemmed from growing up watching Schoolhouse Rock.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well,
and I'm just a bill. And I can remember talking to Bernie Marcus, our founder, who's also the co-founder of the Home Depot. And he said that he had been speaking with somebody the night before. This was in the early days of JCN. He'd been speaking with some young people, and they didn't know what the Congress was made up of. They didn't know Congress was the Senate and the House. And he just was floored. And he said, you got to do some videos on the government and help people understand how our election process works, how a bill gets passed. The president can veto and what that means, and what an executive order means. And all of those videos, it's interesting. You called it curriculum sort of half-heartedly, but it is. Like, we did a search on the URLs that come to our website to see who was downloading. And a lot of universities, a lot of local school districts, a lot of government entities, they've gone to our website in large numbers to take a look at our curriculum.
I still remember everything about it. And I remember so many things of those cartoons. And so it's unfortunate that actually, I think it's in the hands of Disney now. I think they bought it and then sat on it. I wonder why, but we should try to see if we can actually buy it, right? And bring it back, because it really was actually informative. Sad to say, but I did learn a lot of my civics through that. And maybe we need to do a little bit more of that.
My kids can still sing the preamble to the Constitution.
How does it go?
Hey, do you know about the USA? Do you know about the government? Can you tell me about the Constitution? Hey, learn about the USA.
Because they learned it through song, which, that's kind of how people's brains work. It's actually easier to learn through song and remember than, just reading the words. And so they can actually still sing the song of the preamble to the Constitution because of Schoolhouse Rock. So those videos are impactful. And that's kind of what we modeled our videos after, although we don't sing in ours. But we did do the Electoral College in under 2 minutes, which I think is quite a feat. And it explains the importance of it. I know it gets criticized a lot by the other side, the popular vote versus how the Electoral College works. And that's just such an important video to me personally, because if we didn't have that Electoral College, I live in a big state, so obviously my state would have huge influence. But some of these smaller populated states, they'd have no voice. and nobody would ever campaign in these states or care about those small states because they would only go to New York, Florida, Texas, and California to get that popular vote. And so because of our electoral college, the people who live in the smaller states count just as much as the people who live in the big states.
No, you're right. I mean, the stuff that we had on there was fantastic. And I really would like us to think about how we can do more of that. And hey, maybe we can even start putting them on TikTok. That would be interesting.
Absolutely. Then we can reach the young people on TikTok.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time for our interview with Susan Kochevar, who we're so excited to talk to.
Does your business need more website traffic, more customers, more revenue? Well, for nearly 20 years now, the award-winning team at Make It Loud has been helping clients get more from their digital marketing. While other agencies are out there chasing their tail, Make It Loud has one job: to help you make more money. And how do they do it? It's simple. With professional website design, search engine optimization that gets you to the first page of Google, paid ad campaigns in Google, or social media marketing, they bring more customers to your digital front door. They recently made one client over $1 million in revenue during his first year. Stop working with people that don't get your business real results or that you barely know. Visit makeitloud.net. They are not successful until you are. Contact them today at makeitloud.net and let us help you grow your business. That's makeitloud.net.
And now it's time for our interview with Susan Kochevar. Susan is the owner of 88 Drive-In Theater in Colorado. And as we said at the top of the show, Susan's parents purchased the theater in 1976 when they retired and she took over. She works to keep the family business, her father's dream, and a true part of American history alive. The drive-in is a place where families and friends can hang out, eat popcorn, teach children to toss a ball, and trade values while waiting for the sun to go down and the features to begin. In the 40-plus years Susan's family has owned this business, she has watched taxes and regulation explode exponentially. She's almost been regulated out of business several times. She plans to keep her piece of American history alive by fighting against big government agendas, as well as help her fellow small business owners and their communities. Susan, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Thank you, Elaine and Alfredo.
Thank you, Susan, for being on.
How are things out in Colorado?
Getting tougher, probably. We're a completely blue state now. Our legislature is completely blue. There's nothing to stop the regulation, the crazy stuff that comes through, similar to what we see in California. So tough, but we're fighting the battle and trying to stay afloat.
Colorful Colorado has turned into crazy Colorado, I guess, right?
It really has.
It's just crazy. We still talk a lot with Heidi Ganal, who ran for governor there in Colorado on the Republican ticket. Was a former board member, and more importantly than anything, she's been a great friend of us personally and of the organization. And boy, the stories that she just keeps telling me that are coming out of Colorado, it's very, very scary. And if people only knew really what was going on there, because I think it's a little precursor of what could happen if we have Democrats really take full control of this country, don't you think?
Absolutely. The things we're seeing come through the legislature right now don't even make sense. For instance, last year they tried to put through predictive scheduling. So one of the things that would do, I'd have to give my employees a set schedule for, I think it was 2 weeks, which is fine. I try to do that anyway. But the real teeth in it is that if it rained the whole weekend and I had to close or had to, reduce my staff, I would still have to pay those employees who were scheduled to work. We can't do that. No business can do that. Fortunately, it failed, but I'm sure we'll see it again. They come back every year trying to push these regulations. But these are people who have absolutely no idea how things work. They don't know how businesses get their money. They don't know how they pay their employees. It's very childlike.
Yeah, and I know it's really frustrating for business owners like yourself and small business owners in particular that really don't have the resources or the time really to go fight these fights day in and day out at their state capitals or even at the federal level. I mean, so I know that's what's keeping us busy for the past 11 or so odd years trying to fight these things at a at a federal level, a national level, and I know we've been engaged on the Colorado basis as well, and some other states. But boy, it's just nonstop. It really is, and we are just getting to that point where I think we are on the precipice of a total meltdown as a country.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I can see in some of the attitudes of just the general public that, business is bad. They're all out here to cheat us. We should get whatever we can from them.
Yeah.
And that's a sad attitude. Not everybody has that, of course, but a good number of people now that, especially here in Colorado, I see that. I think that's just part of being a blue state and the propaganda that they push.
Yeah.
So.
And it's really sad because Colorado is really known as kind of that state of entrepreneurship. Tech and stuff like that was really moving in. I mean, there was a lot going forward. Now it's completely unaffordable. I mean, Heidi tells me about the, housing costs there, just through the roof, the homeless situation, the opioid, the fentanyl situation. I mean, just completely out of control. Crime. I mean, it's just, it sounds scary. It's just such a shame because it really is such a beautiful state.
It is scary, and I wish I could say that was an exaggeration, but it's not. It's probably even a little worse. Pretty much don't go down to downtown Denver anymore. And even out here in the suburbs where I am now, all of the homeless people have been pushed out too. So I have a homeless camp not very far from me, and we have security at night, and we do sometimes have to keep those people out. We're seasonal, so we're closed in the winter. And a few years running, I've had people camping out under my big trees, and we've had to run them off. They're building fires to keep warm, and it's really bad just to run them off. So it's not good.
Yeah.
Susan, you're in a unique industry, and I'm sure there's probably not that many drive-in theaters left in the country. I think I can remember going to a drive-in theater when I was a kid here in Florida, but I don't even know of any now. So you're kind of a very unique, symbol of America. I mean, this is what people used to do, and it's kind of neat to know that it still exists. But I assume you have had similar challenges to a lot of businesses during COVID. But I wonder, were you able to stay open? Because, I mean, talk about social distancing. Everyone's in their car, safely away from each other, watching movies. Were you able to stay open, or did you have to close too?
Well, by the time we got to spring and opening, people were starting to get worried and push back in our state. The mayor in my town worked with the governor. The mayor just took it on himself to push to get us open because he felt the community needed to get out. It was bad. People were just, as stuck in their house. Everybody was. So he did work to get us open. There wasn't any product from the studios, so we had to show old features. I did need to get a letter from the governor saying we could open, otherwise the studios would not give me product.
Wow.
So it was tough. It wasn't like I could just defy and open. Which I would have been inclined to do. But so they got us open, and we did okay that first year. One thing about drive-ins is they do tend to do well in downturns, and I think that has certainly proved true even through COVID and showing product that was, what they say, in the vault. So,
Well, you were about the only source of true entertainment that people could still go out to, right? I mean, given that they could stay in their own cars and stuff like that. I mean, I'm still determined to get out there. Although my past recent experience with altitude sickness in Colorado, I went up to a conference and I quickly came back because I found out that I'm a lot more susceptible in my old age to altitude than I was before.
You have to drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
Kind of before you come, even. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You were talking about drive-ins too, Elaine. We are predominantly family businesses. Across the nation, there are 300 of us left. We have a few new builds, which is exciting. In 1957, there were over 6,000 of us. And if you want to find one close to you, I know there's one in Florida, but you can go to theauthenticdriveins.com and find us. we are part of what America used to be. And I think through COVID, the hardest part for me is seeing that we've lost that American can-do spirit. Our supply lines were shut down. They're better this year than they were last year, but it feels like we've lost that. You know what? We're Americans, and we will figure out how to get product to you. We will get this through. We will come together, and that part is very concerning to me.
Yeah, I always love saying, right, Elaine, we're Americans, not Americans.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Susan, what was the name of that website again? Because I want to find out if there's one near me in Georgia.
Authentic drive-in, drive-ins.com.
AuthenticDriving.com. Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up, and if there is, I'm going to make sure to hit one at least here in Georgia.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Most of us know each other, but 300's a lot. Interestingly, we have a convention every year in February in Orlando. So.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Next time you come, you'll have to let me know you're in town.
I will.
So you have been part of Job Creators Network for a long time. We fought the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act fight together. And I know you had a lot to say about what that bill would mean for your business. And then we talked about what it meant for your business. What will it mean for your business if Congress and the Biden administration allows the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to expire?
It'll be the destruction of Main Street America. I don't know what else to say about it. We saw under Trump things got a lot better with that reduction of taxes and regulations. And that's what happened with the bill that we fought. Now things are really tough. Here in Colorado, they've passed regulations to increase minimum wage, and utilities have gone up. And of course, taxes. I don't think the powers that be, or maybe they do, understand how much that destroys business. Payroll is certainly a big part of our expenses, and it gets treated like it's not an expense. It's very bizarre to me. So I'm not too sure that small business can withstand very much more in taxes at this point.
What's the primary age of your employees?
I hire young people, so they'll, 15, 16, they're young, and it's very important to teach them the skills so they learn how to come to work on time, ready to go, and then I can offer them a referral, a reference once they've built those skills and stayed with me. I will tell you that a lot of our young people still love to work hard, and they're very smart, and they're very good at what they do, despite what you hear. And I think the new generation of young kids, 15, 16, have a different attitude. They're fighters. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them going forward. They're struggling. And I think that struggle produces a different kind of person.
Oh, so you're seeing a different kind of worker now in the new crop of teens that you're hiring. I mean, this is the first time hearing of this, because a lot of times, Alfredo and I have talked about this, is that, our small business owners tell us that people don't want to work. But you're experiencing something different. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It might be partly because of the community that I am in, although I assume it's getting this way everywhere. But it's a pretty low income area. And the money these kids bring home keeps their families afloat. They really need the money. And they just smile when they get their first check. So I think jobs like mine are super important for young people and families now. I think it's actually how they're making ends meet. I know it is, in fact. They buy school supplies and feed themselves, and they do wind up bringing home quite a bit of money.
Do they look at that first paycheck and go, who is FICA and why are they taking such a big part of my paycheck out?
Well, that's part of being an activist. One of the things I do is sit down and explain to them all the things in that paycheck that I have to take out and how much more they could be making if I didn't have to take that out. And I explain, we've just passed the Family Leave Act here, so I have to take more out of their paychecks. And of course, I have to match part of that. So it's getting easier and easier to explain to them what all of this legislation is doing to their paychecks. I think it's very important to teach them how to watch their hours and calculate their time and work through Social Security and Medicare so they see how much that costs them and learn how all that works. They're quite stunned.
It's a great point. Something, I know we have these explainer videos, Elaine, that we do and stuff like that, but this could be actually a very interesting thing, just hearing you talk about this, Susan, that we actually don't probably, as employers, don't do a good enough job of teaching these first-time, paycheck employees, so to speak, what that paycheck looks like and why is it being generated that way. And, that would actually be something very interesting that we should look at developing for employers to help them understand, or, the kids of today that are getting that first check, what that all means.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
So you were asking, I think, about the Family Leave Act, Elaine. So I have to deduct a certain amount. It always starts out with not much, so I can't remember the percentages, but it's about $5 a paycheck or so, and I have to match it. So this money goes into a fund so that people can use it for pretty nearly anything they want. It's supposed to be emergencies or family emergencies or a friend's emergency, but you can take, I can't even remember how many weeks. I think it's up to, or months. I think it's like 3 months off. And yeah, as the employer, I have to hold the job open for these people. So does that mean I have to hire somebody and then fire them when that person comes back? None of this stuff works, but that's essentially what the Family Leave Act is for. Time off.
Does it impact your business or a certain number of employees, part-time, full-time? How does that work?
I think it impacts 10 or more, so I just come under that, employers with 10 or more employees. Interestingly, it does not impact government, but that fund pays those people while they're off.
Interesting. And it goes to the state. The state manages the fund.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Alfredo, you're talking about teaching people what comes out of their checks and how that stuff works. One of the things I find about all these regulations is that when staff doesn't understand how all the regulations work and impact businesses, they'll think that the business owner is trying to do something bad to them or mean, or, like when you say, okay, nobody can get any overtime, I can't afford to pay that. The business takes it on the chin for that. Employees see that as the business holding them down. And that's not really the case, is it? It's that you have to pay so much in overtime. And that overtime, those overtime regulations cause that rub. And I think a lot of other regulations do too. That's why it's important to teach your employees about regulations and how they impact them, why your employer acts the way that they do.
Yeah, we really are missing that just kind of basic, I'm not even going to call it economics 101. I'm just talking about basic living 101, in high schools. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, young kids say, I don't even know what a checking account is. I don't know, again, FICA. I don't know. How do you save for the future? They just gotta get thrown into the world. And unfortunately, I think the Democrats have done a nice job of really positioning all business owners, small, medium, and large, as evildoers, unfortunately, that are just out to get you. And, I think there really needs to be a continued understanding and education process. And, as you remember, that was kind of where we started with Job Creators Network, was the employer-to-employee education program. So many other issues have popped up that we were kind of focused on that, but it might be smart, Elaine, through the foundation actually, to kind of revisit that whole education program and maybe really just focus it on these 15, 16, 17-year-olds that are getting their first jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. It really is helpful because there's so many influences coming at them. You got TikTok and Instagram, and, there's sort of a vacuum of a message on entrepreneurship and conservative economic policies, it tends to be, more, socialistic policies, and somehow all these small business owners are multi-gazillionaires just trying to screw the little guy. And we've had a lot of small business owners tell us, all my employees when they came in thought I was this, super rich guy. And until I sat them down and explained to them, how much it takes to run this business, to make payroll every week, to pay the electricity bills and everything like that. And what a difference it makes when the employees have an understanding of that and have that skin in the game, to know that the work they're doing is keeping the business roof over their heads as much as their paychecks are keeping their own roofs over their heads.
Yes. One of the things I like to teach my employees is that they are actually their own small business, even when you work for somebody else. You're actually contracting your time and talent for pay, but your employer for you on your behalf is taking care of all the taxes, whereas a small business, where you're not contracting that way, you're doing it, you're paying your own taxes. So you're still your own small business, and how you dress when you come to work and how you behave is your brand. So I like to explain all that to them, and I think it gives them a better understanding of how everything works and their role in their own ability to make money and succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about some of the challenges at the state level. You've talked about some of the challenges at the federal level. What are you hoping to see as you look ahead to the 2024 election? What types of policies are not only going to help you, but small businesses in general? You got 30 million small businesses out there, just like yourself, trying to not just survive, but thrive and grow and create jobs so you can give back to your community. And so we like to, kind of get an idea of what you as a small business owner are hoping for yourself, as well as the broader economy with this election coming up.
It's going to be a tall order. We need drastic cuts in regulation, drastic cuts in some of the departments. And it depends on what business you're in. Some businesses, the EPA really badly affects them. So we need cuts. We need to clear out all the corruption. There's a lot of corruption going on. I'd like to see changes or elimination of the Department of Education. I think it's damaging the schools, it's damaging our young people, and it's damaging their future. And those are people who will grow businesses and work in communities. That needs to be done too. There's so much, a huge cut in taxation too. It's a tall order for 2024.
Well, have you followed some of the states that have passed some of the school choice? Arizona, Iowa, Arkansas, Florida. Alfredo, I know that's a big hot button for you as well, and the importance of some of those bills. But have you been following some of that and what it's going to do for our kids? I mean, COVID was kind of a wake-up call for everybody.
It was a huge wake-up call. I think for the first time, people were able to see how little their children were being taught and what they were being taught. And I think that has done more to awaken parents to what's happening in the schools than anything. And I think we're seeing more homeschooling, more charter schools, all the above, and that will impact the country as we go forward in a positive way, I think. So it in a lot of ways, that's not a negative thing. In just a few years, as those kids start to graduate and go to school and stuff, I think we're going to see some changes.
I'm going to go back to the education piece, because that is something that, we've been looking at in Georgia, for example. Last year, the state legislature tried to pass it, didn't go through. I know they're going to go for it again this year. Kim Reynolds has done amazing things in Iowa. Doug Ducey in Arizona did amazing things. Sadly though, Republicans forget about selling the win. I mean, what we did, Susan, together after the tax cuts, if you remember, we had the first campaign, which was the Tax Cuts Now campaign. And then we had the second part of it, which is the Tax Cuts Work campaign to really sell that win. I mean, in Arizona, sadly, the new governor there, Democrat governor, is actually trying to reverse everything that Doug Ducey had put in place. So, when we talk about education reform, we just got to make sure that we have kind of this two-phase, you get the win, selling the win, get the win, but then we also have to keep, talking about people afterwards, about, why it's important that actually took place and the positive impact it's had. And so, I was fortunate that, I'm really a product of being able to move from the zip code that I actually grew up in. I was able to move out, and, quite frankly, I don't think you and I would be having this conversation with Elaine if I hadn't had that opportunity. I'd probably just be exactly where I was when I grew up. Not that that was a bad thing, but I always want to make sure that every single person achieves their utmost potential, and I think our schools are just failing us left and right. I heard that in Colorado, going back again, is that capitalism, I think, was considered a bad thing or something like that. It was something like that. I heard that in the news. Did you hear about that as well?
I didn't hear about it, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's interesting. That's one of the things when I start my summer with my kids, I start off by telling them I'm a capitalist, and that really turns some heads. So, and I have to explain what that is and what that means. And you're talking about moving from a zip code. That's the promise of America. You can start anywhere and move up. We shouldn't even call people middle class. We're not supposed to have any class. I really want to get back to that attitude. It's so important. You have to give young people hope and something to fight for. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that really is. And, that's something, Susan, just so you know, that Job Creators Network, we're really going to be taking on, working with a couple of other national organizations that are involved in it, because this really is also our future workforce. I mean, it's our future, really, if you think about it. And unfortunately, the schools are really just failing them so much. We're not going to have a workforce that's actually worth a dime relative to our competition on a global basis.
I do a lot of teaching. One of the things I teach is language. Sometimes I wind up correcting language. I don't know how kids get out of high school and without teachers teaching them how to speak correctly. When you speak correctly, people don't know if you went to college or not, and it impacts your ability to read. And I have to teach children the young people how to make change. They don't know how to do that. So those very basic skills, which are so important, and then you just build on those. And we talk sometimes about getting other jobs and what their skills are, the things they're going to have to put on a resume, things that they've done. And it's so fun because their faces just brighten up when they figure out, oh, this is how you do it. This is what I've done. I love it.
Yeah, and what you described, Susan, this is what why communities survive with small businesses, because what you're doing with your small business and with your employees, going through that education process, that is why this country has done so beautifully, and small businesses have really been the backbone of our communities, because you take the time and the heart really to actually build the skills of these kids that are going to go get another job, right? They're going to leave you. So you knowingly basically are taking the time and the effort and the money really to train these folks to actually leave you, which is kind of ironic. Big businesses, I hate to say this, but I just don't think they take that same kind of heart and time to educate our children the way you do.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And lots of times I get to know their parents, and then they come back and say hi and show me what they've done with what they've learned. But I run my business on young people, and like I said, they are very smart, they're very talented, and there are a lot of them that work very hard. It's hot in the summer in my snack bar, and we're serving a ton of customers, and they work hard and stick with it. And
that's great.
I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, that's great. We need more people like you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Susan, can you give us that website one more time before we go on finding a drive-in theater near you?
Yes, authenticdriveintheaters.com.
Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you. And thank you so much for joining us on Main Street Matters, America's Small Business Megaphone. And for those of you listening today or watching, you can subscribe to the show on salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast from.